This is KTN Friday Briefing with Betty Kyallo.
It will be completely out of order for the Speaker of the National Assembly to interpret powers of the National Assembly by looking only at Article 95 of the Constitution.
Supreme Court sides with the Senate. National Assembly is told off over revenue law.
It's premature to get very worried about the bill.
If you leave any space to those in power, then recovering it takes a long time.
Kenyans in uproar of a media gag bill. Braving the scary business, Molo's woman coffin maker. And the world heads to Marsabit for Sunday's solar eclipse. Of November 2013, a brand new month, and tonight on Friday Briefing we begin the month with a comprehensive coverage of the news and of course the newsmakers. We also have our unique Friday segments in which a 12-year-old boy with mighty dreams will be coming a little bit later as my guest anchor. You need to hear this voice speak. Also, Willis the Word Master, as always, is set to take us back to English class on Mind Your Language. Quite a jam-packed bulletin we have tonight. But first, let's take a look at our top stories tonight. Now, in its determination to settle the supremacy battle between the two houses, the Supreme Court wrapped the National Assembly Speaker, Justin Muturi, for breaching the Constitution by negating the Senate's input in the contentious division of the Revenue Act. KTN Samugina reports.
Matter of great public importance.
It was a landmark ruling that has uplifted the Senate while blasting the National Assembly's big brother attitude. The Supreme Court quashed the National Assembly's ego right from its top.
It will be completely out of order for the Speaker of the National Assembly to interpret powers of the National Assembly by looking only at Article 95 of the Constitution.
It is obvious that the Speaker of the National Assembly, by abandoning all engagement or consultation with the Speaker of the Senate and proceeding as he did in the matter before this court, had acted contrary to the Constitution.
In a 6-1 verdict, the Supreme Court by majority censured the National Assembly for undermining the Senate over the acrimonious Division of Revenue Act 2013. The National Assembly had rejected the Senate's proposal of scaling up county budgets to 258 billion shillings from 210 billion shillings. The Supreme Court faulted the National Assembly's cockiness and monopoly of the lawmaking powers.
The Senate had a clear role to play in the processing of the Division of Revenue Bill. The Speaker of the National Assembly should have complied with the terms of Article 112 of the Constitution, and the National Assembly should have considered the deliberations of the Senate on record.
The Supreme Court overruled the National Assembly, categorizing the Division of Revenue Bill as a non-money bill, which determines sharing of the national cake between the national and county governments. And so, the bill was within the Senate's purview to agitate for increased funding for counties up to 40% of the national revenue.
Tools for reviewing the Constitution to address the restructuring of authority, power and functions of the legislature and the roles of Senate and the National Assembly lies squarely in a political and not judicial process.
After all, legislative authority is derived from the people. Both houses of parliament represent the same people, and the resources at the core of this dispute are owned by the people of Kenya.
While the dissenting judge Njoki Ndungu maintained the Supreme Court lacked jurisdiction over the Senate and the National Assembly power wars, the majority ruled that the National Assembly breached constitutional provisions. They said sanity and constitutionalism had to be restored.
Mediation is not something one can command. It is all about managing relationships between disputing parties.
If Parliament violates the procedural requirements of the supreme law of the land, it is for the courts of law
not least the Supreme Court, to assert the authority and supremacy of the Constitution.
But the judges read the Riot Act to parliamentarians, directing both houses to explore dispute mechanisms as provided in law and stop political turf wars.
With regard to any future lack of accord of a similar nature between the two chambers of parliament, there shall be an obligation resting on the state organs in question to resort to mediation.
Governors welcomed the ruling as a vindication of their referendum crusade to enhance county budgets and empower the Senate.
We still believe that a properly empowered Senate is capable of protecting devolution.
Nonetheless, despite finding procedural flaws in the enactment of the Divisions of Revenue Act, the court restrained itself from annulling the act but stressed devolution was a key pillar of the Constitution and the Senate is its anchor. Samugina, KTN.
Let's stay with that story of the Senate win. And joining me in studio is Kipchumba Murkomen, who's Senator for Elgeyo Marakwet and also the chair of the Devolution Committee. Thank you very much for coming on the Friday briefing.
Thank you.
All right, so what does this ruling mean in terms of the relationship between the Senate and the National Assembly?
Basically, it means that we are joined together. We are supposed to remain one house. I mean, one institution as Parliament, and we are supposed to work together. Indeed, what the courts have clarified is that, contrary to the previous discussions in the public domain, that almost every bill goes to, in fact, that was the most important decision, according to me, that almost every bill that touches counties in whatever manner and has an impact on county governments is supposed to go to Senate. And I believe so strongly that the relationship between National Assembly and Senate will now have to improve. All right,
let's just break it down to Kenyans. What does this ruling really mean in terms of what exactly will happen next?
Next year, first of all, next year, Division of Revenue Bill will have to go through both houses. That means it must be negotiated and agreed to all bills that concern county. Whatever bill that has particular implications on counties in whatever way must, in one way or another, pass through the two houses. So, like now, we have almost 15 bills that we have had a problem with the Speaker of National Assembly that have not been brought to the Senate. And I believe that through that decision, these bills are able to come to the Senate.
Now, Senator, in most countries, the Senate is usually the, sort of like the upper hand, you know. But then it seems like the Senate is being bullied around, especially by the National Assembly.
It's a new institution, and the question here is competition for space and powers, and in like any other new institution, it's trying to find its own space. In fact, I like what the Chief Justice said, that since this is a transition phase, the role of the Supreme Court is to ensure that the strength of institutions is not lost in the process of transition. And I think it's important that this decision came as early as this, so that we can locate the position of the Senate in its right place. Of course, another very good decision from the Chief Justice, he noted very well that the history of negotiation for constitution leads to a situation where certain compromises are made, and that constitution making is a continuous process, in the sense that constitution making process is also does continue through interpretation, and the role of the Senate Supreme Court is to ensure that making will correct the mistakes that might have ensued as a result of political deals during the negotiation for the constitution.
And what does this bill mean in terms of this ruling mean in terms of the bill that caused this whole problem in the first place? Does it change?
No, that is where the court was very cautious. It said that since we did not request and we did not see it necessary to make a request to annul the bill, because we knew that if we were to annul the bill at this particular time, while national government and county government have already budgeted, it was going to cause a crisis, a practical crisis. So for that reason, the court exercised what can be called judicial economy to ensure that it doesn't create a crisis of some sort.
Let's move on to that conversation about the referendum. Does it have any effect on that push for the referendum? And
absolutely.
Exactly?
It actually, in other words, the court is saying if you interpret the constitution properly, you don't need to go for referendum. And I like the way the Chief Justice put it, that constitution making is a continuous process through interpretation. And I think my call to the National Assembly is that they must, we must all of us rise, send the National Assembly to a stage where we do not need to push our people to undergo unnecessary costs, and yet we have mechanism through interpretation that we can achieve the same results. And I think this vindicates what we have always said, that what we needed was a good relationship between the leadership of Senate and National Assembly, which even before this decision was came to the fore, we were already working on it, and now it's going to be cemented through this decision. And going forward, if liberal interpretation of the Constitution, purposive and liberal interpretation of the Constitution is going to be adopted, we'll sort out most of the problems that people want to go through constitutional amendment. We don't need to go through constitutional amendment if the Supreme Court plays its constitutional role.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir, for your time. And of course, now we need to see that acceleration of activities for the Senate.
You will see the Senate taking its stage. You will see all the bills. By the way, if a proper interpretation of the Constitution is done, even the media bill would have come to Senate. And perhaps the issues that are being negotiated now between the media owners, the media practitioners, and the National Assembly, the way they passed the bill would have been corrected if a second chamber of the state of Senate had the time to relook at such a bill.
All right.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you very much.
All right. Right, let's move on to other news. Leaders and stakeholders, including members of the Senate, have reacted with shock and anger at the approval by MPs of an amendment bill which proposes massive control measures against the Kenyan media. Senators James Orengo and Otieno Kajwang say the bill is draconian and would return Kenya to the dark past where media was stifled. But as KTN's Patrick Amimo reports, State House spokesman Mano Esipisu has said that the president will review the controversial bill.
The controversial Kenya Information and Communications Amendment Bill that was passed Thursday by 60 MPs deals a fatal blow to free speech. The media fraternity under the Kenya Editors Guild, Kenya Union of Journalists, and the Kenya Correspondents Association have expressed strong opposition to the bill.
Commissioners who understand Uhuru Kenyatta not to sign it into law. From the look of things, the National Assembly has chosen to misuse its legislative powers to reintroduce draconian laws meant to gag the media and muzzle all critical voices that seek to hold power to account.
There are provisions within the KICA bill and even the media bill that is coming that appear to contradict the letter and spirit of the Constitution.
Senators James Orengo and Otieno Kajwang say the bill will stifle free speech.
There's everything to show that the government was firmly behind this move. The members of parliament were being mobilized by the leader of the majority in parliament.
So I want to suggest to those who have passed this draconian bill that they will not possibly be able to control or stifle the voice of the people. In fact, without the media, we would not even hear the government.
Despite the heated debate and strong opposition against the bill, Attorney General Professor Githu Muigai says it's too early for Kenyans to start expressing their concerns.
So the final product you are referring to, we have not yet officially received. We will receive next week, then we will evaluate the nature of the product, then we will advise the President accordingly, in accordance with the Constitution.
In a statement to media houses, the leader of Amani Coalition, Musalia Mudavadi, urged President Uhuru Kenyatta not to assent to the repressive bill that was approved by the National Assembly on Thursday, terming it discriminative, punitive, and one that will criminalize an economic sector and journalism. Mudavadi says a critical bill that has far-reaching implications on rights should not be treated casually. He accused the National Assembly of abusing its mandate. The chairman of the Council of Governors also wants the president not to assent to the bill.
I don't think we need a media that is timid. I know Everybody is prone to making mistakes. But certainly, I better bring the mistake on the table and everybody corrects me than for us to say there should be no reporting. We know there are certain sensitive issues, but really, nevertheless, they are worth being put on the table, even if they are a little bit uncomfortable.
The Editors Guild called on Kenyans to support the crusade to protect the constitution and democracy against what it says is an obvious parliamentary dictatorship. The media fraternity under the Editors Guild has said it will use all lawful means to ensure the bill does not prevail over the constitution. Patrick Amimo, KTN Friday Briefing.
Now, all buses belonging to the Umoina company have been grounded following the tragic collision of a train and a minibus on Wednesday. But as KTN's Najma Ismail reports, there are no surprises from the government in its reaction to the accident.
3 days after the tragic collision of a train and a bus in Nairobi's Mutindwa Junction, Transport Cabinet Secretary Michael Kamau visited the scene, and he was reading from the same tough talk script used at the Ntulele crash site at the end of August.
All those people, and this is not a popularity contest, and let's not try to have be politicians, and I'll say this, be it politicians, whoever you are, whatever you are, be you a magistrate, be you a policeman, be you a matatu person. All those people who are perpetuating madness, it's got to stop. It's got to stop.
And once again, the blame game.
I have an issue with the courts. I'm an engineer. My training is that of an engineer. And there are certain things that you cannot do without going to site. And I think the magistrate or the judge who gave that injunction ought to have visited this site and then given that injunction saying that the structure should not. I don't think we should carry out our jobs in an abstract manner.
But even with growing demands for effective measures to contain road carnage, the secretary reverted to the age-old channel of suspension of licenses.
We are suspending all the licenses of that circle. I don't care whether they are million vehicles, whether they are 2 or 3. Commandant, none of these vehicles should move on the roads. Yes. We should get the same way we did with the Eldoret Express, the same way we did with the city to city. You cause an accident that causes death, we suspend your license, you go for further inspection.
It was the same strategy that was used after the city-to-city bus crash in Tulele, Narok, that left 42 people dead, only for the suspension to be lifted soon after. And when the president spoke at another venue today,
the accident in Nairobi this week, which killed at least a dozen people, was a stark reminder that more needs to be done to improve road safety.
It is feared most of the public service vehicles which have been suspended usually rebrand and get back on the road. But the more pressing question today was why there were no barriers at the level crossing to stop vehicles as the train approaches.
Collective madness has to end, and it has to end, and we'll end it. Otherwise, it cannot be business as usual. So I'm now instructing demolition of anything and everything that is encroaching.
Najma Ismail, KTN Friday Briefing.
Well, Najma's story leads us to the big question tonight, and we ask, are you satisfied with the license suspension of the Umoina Sacco buses after the Mutindwa accident? Are you satisfied with that particular license suspension of those buses? Well, text us. The number is 22155. That's 22155. You can also tweet me at Betty Kyallo or at KTN Kenya, and I'll be glad to share your views during this newscast. Now, former Chief Registrar of the Judiciary, Gladys Boss-Sholei, has challenged her sacking. Sholei was sacked by the Judicial Service Commission over allegations of financial impropriety, incompetence, misbehavior, and insubordination. Her petition was being certified as urgent by Justice David Majanja and will be heard on Monday next week. She has also requested for a public hearing and expressed confidence in the country's judiciary. All right, to another developing story, and Parliament is set to determine whether or not 6 Judicial Service Commission members will be removed from office. Let us take a look at the highlights of this new developments. Let us just move here to the Super Bowl. And the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee wants JSC commissioners, that is Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi, Samuel Kobia, Christine Mango, Mohamed Warsame, and Emily Ominde, and Florence Mwangangi investigated. Committee and also the commission is set to be investigated for obstructing investigations into judicial staff accused of misappropriating about 80 million shillings. So what next if it is approved? The commission is set to be, if the National Assembly approves the report, Uhuru will have to suspend the 6 JSC commissioners who I've just mentioned and form a tribunal to probe them. And also, the tribunal could clear JSC members of the or recommend their sacking. Those are the 2 scenarios, just in case Uhuru suspends the JSC members. Those are the 2 scenarios we're looking at. The tribunal could clear the members or recommend their sacking. We'll be following that story, which is developing for you. To other stories, with the click of a button, you can now talk and even report cases of corruption directly to the head of state. Through a website launched yesterday, President Uhuru Kenyatta's government is hoping to encourage Kenyans to expose corrupt officials in his government. KTN's Edith Kimani has these details.
Want an appointment with the president? It is now as simple as logging on to this website. At least that is what the government is telling us. The site, president.go.ke, has undoubtedly opened accessibility to State House like never seen before. But it is this link that allows you to report incidents of corruption directly to the president that has people talking.
The president will rely a lot on very many other institutions to make the fight against corruption a reality, because you have the opportunity of now reporting directly to the president, so no one can stop an investigation. So because the president will now take personal interest on it, and the state infrastructure that supports the presidency will be involved fully, from the Director of Public Prosecutions, from EACC. Everyone who is involved in the fight of corruption will be involved now in actual tracking of each of the things that have been promised.
Dennis Itumbi, who oversees the digital platforms of the presidency, says it was vital to have that anti-corruption tab on the site. President Uhuru Kenyatta is concerned about graft, he says, and he should be. In its latest report, Transparency International ranked Kenya 139 out of 176 countries on its Global Corruption Perceptions Index. That is to say only 37 countries in the world are more corrupt than Kenya. More worrying in the report was that only 7 in every 100 people said they reported corruption or complained when it happened. Others simply ignored incidents of corruption. The report showed those polled felt no action would be taken even if they reported. But with this website, State House is hoping to change that.
We have then a dedicated team of officers who are doing, as long as when the reports come in, first of all, they go into another form which is already set. So if you're reporting, say, Dennis Itumbi who is in PSU, it goes on a PSU form. If you're reporting a person who is maybe National Registration Bureau, it goes to that segment. So that team then fishes that and posts it on a platform which is then given to all senior officials in State House and to the president specifically.
Itumbi says there have been more than 3,000 reports on the 2-day-old website. Observers, however, say the excitement will eventually die off, which will see these numbers slow down on a day-to-day basis. But slow numbers have not deterred Anthony Ragoi, who runs this website. Unlike the presidency site, ipaidabribe.or.ke is dedicated entirely to reporting corruption. Visitors on the site have an option of telling their bribe stories and saying how much they paid or were paid. The bribe analytics on the page show a staggering 125 million shillings has changed hands illegally, and this is just from 3,500 reported cases on the site. So how will reporting corruption cases change the current state of affairs?
There is a mechanism to investigate every report that we get. So proper investigations will be done before action is taken.
There's also an SMS number that is available for those without internet access, or one that can be used when the site is down, as was the case Thursday, just a few hours after it was launched. Engineers of the site, however, admit it is not a perfect site, and construction and maintenance work will always be in progress to ensure smooth operations. So, go for it. Grab your phone, text the president. Edith Kimani, KTN.
All right, time to take a short commercial break. But before then, let me remind you of our big hit tonight. And we had asked, are you satisfied with the license suspension of the Umoina Sacco buses after the Mtindwa accident? Are you satisfied with the license suspension of those particular buses? You can send us a yes or no response together with a short comment to the number 22155, and I'll be glad to sample them during this newscast. So we take that short commercial break, but before then I have to introduce you to my guest anchor, Ronnie Njogu. Welcome to KTN Friday Briefing.
Wow, thank you for welcoming me.
You look great.
Oh, you're rocking that dress.
Wow, all right, so are you excited to be here?
Wow, more than excited.
You're more than excited?
More than excited, believe you me.
I can imagine. So what we'll do is we'll take a short commercial break, then we'll come back and then you'll be here. Probably I'll be standing where you are. We'll swap places. Are you excited?
Yes, I am.
All right. So we take that short commercial break. You'll see more of Ronnie right after this break. Stay tuned. The world comes to Kenya for the 15 seconds of the solar eclipse.
Hii kesi imechukua mkondo ingine, watu kutoka national level wako wana negotiate kwa hii kesi. Kwa hivyo imeahirishwa mpaka wakati tutaambiwa tena. Na ili ni confirm haya maneno, mheshimiwa mwenyewe ameniandikia message kwa simu yangu.
You are watching KTN Friday Briefing.
All right, let's move on to another interesting bit of Friday Briefing. Well, she chose to ignore the raised eyebrows and whispers to break into an uncommon occupation. Fatuma Abubakar proceeded to build a successful coffin making business in Molo. Rachel Menza with that story.
Like many mothers, she rises with the morning sun to do her household chores. 35-year-old Fatma Abubakar, a mother of two, then leaves for work. But hers is a unique occupation, at least for a woman. This is where Fatma spends her day, making coffins. It was not her first choice for a career. She says her customers drove her into making coffins for business.
Ikakuwa kama kwa wiki na wajengea jeneza 2, 3. Ikanivutia kwa hii kazi ya majeneza.
Although the business picked up immediately, she was initially disturbed about her occupation.
Ni vile niliunda tuseme za kwanza 5, kaja nikazoea. Sasa ikakuwa tu ni kawaida.
While her family has supported her all the way, it was a different story from her neighbors who considered coffin making as a curse. Dubbed Fatma's Sunset Ready-Made Coffins, her workshop was at the time the only coffin producer in Molo.
Majirani mwanzo hawakupendelea, ndio walisema na kuja kama majeneza na yanavutia kifo. Mwanzoni hawakuzipendelea, lakini vile walikaa kuziona wakaja wakazoea.
This is Amina Ibra. She owns a salon next to Fatma's coffin workshop. And for her, it was simply a nightmare to see coffins displayed all around.
Nilikuwa namchukulia vibaya. Juu nilikuwa nasema sasa huyu anajenga anaunda majeneza, anagoja watu wakufe kwa nini? Si agoja mtu akufe ndio mtu akuje anunue.
Over the years, she has gathered courage to face up to the fact that a coffin is a necessary product, but she admits that she is always overcome with emotions when preparing a coffin for a close relative.
Si feel kama hizi zingine, na iona ikiwa tofauti. Kama labda ni ya mtoto mdogo, hiyo huwa hata mimi, hata nikijenga, nasikia roho si nzuri. Sasa nasema fulani anaenda kuwekwa kwa hii jeneza, ama namalizia fulani hii jeneza.
Fatma has been in this business for 10 years now, and she plans to expand it. She makes between 8,000 shillings and 30,000 shillings per coffin. In the entire Molo area, she has only one competitor, the one who's located right just opposite her workshop.
Mimi kwangu si kuona ikuwa kazi mbaya, hata kama ni mwanamke, ni kutafuta riziki.
Kamchemenza, KTN from Nakuru.
Thank you, Rachel, for that story. We're back with Ronnie. Ronnie, I have to ask you, before we take a break, I know you've been watching Friday Briefing. Who has been your favorite guest anchor?
Okay, I'm not much that mad, but as the first glance, the person who I liked and who I saw had charisma and power.
Charisma and power.
Yes, Chiwakali. I liked the way he was confident. He wasn't even, thinking. He was just saying, being himself.
Easy.
Yes, easy. Even if he couldn't talk English, he was just talking the way he knew best. Yes.
All right, so take us to the break.
Okay, we are taking a commercial break. We'll be back shortly. Stay tuned to Friday News Briefing.
Kenya Revenue Authority to conduct employee lifestyle audits.
You are watching KTN Friday Briefing.
Of its employees as it intensifies the crackdown to rein in corrupt staff. Well, this comes as the taxman comes under increased pressure to weed out those fixed price and service delivery that has also led to loss of revenues. And as KTN's Michael Karanja reports, KRA's efforts will have the backing of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission out to nab those committing economic crimes.
Grapevine has over time held that some of the best places to work in Kenya include the government and all the agencies within it. This has been accentuated by the perception of easy money through corruption before service delivery. To remain true to its call, the Kenya Revenue Authority is taking the fight to a whole new level with lifestyle audits of its staff. The aim of this new measure is to detect and deter corrupt practices from within its ranks and recover unexplained assets.
During this term, we will be undertaking additional measures touching on the elimination of corruption and the mainstreaming of integrity, including, for example, introducing the vetting of staff, particularly when we are recruiting new people, undertaking lifestyle audits, especially for cases for persons who are subject of disciplinary investigations, and also importantly, linking performance to integrity interventions.
Following the signing of the MOU with the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, the taxman will also step up the fight against tax evasion through prosecution of individuals violating this section of the law. While in the past the crime has gone with little or no punishment, KRA will be seeking stricter penalties and freezing of accounts to recoup lost revenues.
One thing, for example, one area where we have had significant problems, for example, is in audit selection, where selection has been based on discretion by staff, and within the new system, we expect that selection of taxpayers will be based on criteria and parameters developed within the system.
Following in President Uhuru Kenyatta's footsteps, KRA will also be launching an intelligence gathering website that will enable whistleblowers to report tax crimes anonymously. Leveraging on technology, KRA is also in the process of upgrading its system that will limit human intervention in tax collection in a bid to show up revenue collection. Michael Karanja, KTN Business.
Now, transforming Africa into a leading economy will require the use of science to solve the continent's decades-old challenges. This is according to researchers at the IBM Research Lab Africa, the one and only in the continent. Well, Joseph Bonyo spent time with the chief scientist at the lab, Dr. Oyi Stewart, and brings us the following report.
Drought, hunger, diseases, traffic jams, and unemployment continues to characterize Africa more than 60 years after independence. This has seen the continent be at the center stage of aid and research, with little solutions coming out of that. However, this is set to change with the establishing of an IBM Research Lab in Africa. The lab, the first of its kind in the continent, is based in Nairobi, Kenya.
And the mission of the lab primarily is to focus on Africa's grand challenges. What do I mean by that? The goal is to leverage science and technology to address some of the key challenges that we face as a continent.
Set up at a cost of $20 million in a joint venture between IBM and the Kenyan government, the lab now in its first year is already attracting some of Africa's best brains as researchers. The team is already working on solutions that will see the transformation of Mother Africa.
The way we want to do it is to focus on developing what we're calling commercially viable innovation that would impact the lives of more than 1 billion people in the continent of Africa.
At the core of the lab's operation will be data collection from a number of African countries. Through this, the researchers will be able to scientifically generate sustainable solutions for the continent. All this, they say, will be key to, among other things, transforming Africa economically.
These are all areas that if you go from Johannesburg to Lagos, through Nairobi to Accra, everyone would agree that these are the problems our people face as a continent.
The solutions developed by the lab are ultimately expected to make Africa a better place to live in through improvement in the continent's state of food security, better public procurement systems, and urban planning over the years.
You start small, right? There is this proverb that says Rome was not built in a day, but Rome got built, and it got built by laying the first stone. So based on that analogy, what we do is to take the data that we have and start from there.
The lab is expected to be officially opened by Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta in the coming days.
The African continent is faced with a number of challenges that researchers in this lab insist they've got solutions for. Solutions they also say will help in transforming the continent. Joseph Bonyo for KTN.
Now, is the East African Community much-taunted integration threatened days after being left out of a regional meeting in Kigali, Rwanda? Tanzania is said to be courting new partners for a possible union.
Over a decade of the revived East African Community, the position of Tanzania as a member has remained wobbly, while each of the member states in a recent assessment report revealed possible hindrances in the community. The second largest economy in the region has borne more blame. More recently, it has complained of being sidelined by Kenya, Rwanda, and Uganda in putting pen to paper on a number of bilateral agreements. The new axis has been described as a coalition of the willing, further raising the possibility of a total exclusion of Dar es Salaam. The country has also raised enough alarm on this latest move. However, it is yet to formally launch an official complaint with the community secretariat in Arusha.
I've not seen a formal complaint from Tanzania. I've seen media reports, but it's not possible to force anybody into the integration process because the countries themselves, through the treaty, decided that they want a customs union, that they want a common market, that they want a monetary union, that they want a political federation.
But despite visible tension within the community, heads of state have continued to pour cold water on the fate of the fragile union. The latest of such was by President Uhuru Kenyatta on the sidelines of a regional meeting in Kigali, Rwanda. Kenyatta insisted all member states were united in achieving the goals of the union. Tanzania, on its part, is said to engage gears to negotiate a new economic front with Burundi and the Democratic Republic of Congo, as well as tightening its relationships in the South African Development Corporation, SADC. Philip Keita, KTN Business.
KTN Business.
That's it for business. Now, in a recap of our top story tonight, the Supreme Court has said the Senate has a role to play in passing the Division of Revenue Bill. This effectively ends a dispute between Kenya's two houses of parliament over the matter. The court has also advised the National Assembly and the Senate to settle their differences through mediation while delivering an advisory on the Division of Revenue Bill. President of the court, Chief Justice William Mutunga, said the bill is a lawful instrument for the allocation of revenue between the national and county governments. Time for sports now. Now, the Kenya Volleyball Federation regular season ended today in Changamwe, where the last matches were played. And Kenya Pipeline remained favourites heading to the playoff matches. Pipeline defending champions Kenya Prisons, KCB and Nairobi Water all qualified for the playoffs. African champions Prison recorded 2 victories today. They first beat Oserian 3-0 in sets of 25-14, 25-13 and 25-12, and later overcame Nairobi Water 3-1. Pipeline bagged 3 points without hitting a ball after their would-be opponents Ulinzi failed to honour their match. Nairobi Water also benefited from a walkover against Ulinzi, while KCB edged out Blue Triangle 3-2. In Men's National League, General Service Unit and Kenya Prisons were among early teams to qualify for the playoffs. Kenya Prisons hit their Mombasa colleagues in their first match of the day. Cooperative Bank was too good for Forest Rangers after they beat them 3-1. Now, the CAS Marathon 2013 will incorporate doping seminars so as to sensitize athletes against the use of banned drugs. CAS CEO Julius Lamaon says many athletes buy drugs over the counter without checking whether they contain elements categorized as performance-enhancing substances banned by IAAF. He says careers of many promising athletes could be ruined because of doping. Lamaon spoke in Eldoret last evening during a meeting of partners to this year's event set for November 17th. Registration for this year's event is ongoing at all CAS international offices. Registration can also be done online.
Okay, I will not continue activation, and we want to build talent.
KTN Sport.
The baby is cute, but the story is very sad. We've come to the end of Friday Briefing, but before we wind up, want to make a small correction. Earlier on Kenyan Voices, a mistake was put that former Energy Minister is Kiraitu Murungaru, but we apologize for that. It's Kiraitu Murungi. Thank you very much for watching KTN Friday Briefing. Ronnie, did you enjoy yourself?
I did. I had so much fun.
Would you come back again?
That's a promise.
Were your friends in school watching?
Yeah, I want to thank all the people out there for watching me. I want to thank you, all the people who are watching me, my family, and also the tweets were just so amazing. I'm so touched and encouraged. Thank you so much for tuning in to KTN News Briefing.
Oh, thank you very much.
I'm Ronin Jogu, and hope we'll be seeing you again.
You trust me, you will. I'm Betty Kyallo. Thank you very much for watching. See you again next Friday on KTN Friday Briefing.